uses the
Greetings, teams. It's been a while.
the website
Apologies for
version
the
of
wait.
Discord as the
There has
client,
been
with
a
more features
lot
than the
of
actual
stuff going on lately. To name a few, management's been diverting funds to a new project that has something to do with the planet's core. The details are still cagey, and I'm not in the need-to-know group, apparently, so I'll have to give you the speculation until we get more solid info on the matter. In the meantime, however, our surface-level operations are still proceeding as usual, and we have some more equipment to go over. Now, I mentioned the reallocation of mining team funds, and the effects of that have also hit us in the upper decks as well. We're doing more with less these days, and have needed to seek other avenues to keep the equipment running and teams like yours well stocked. For this reason, I'm happy to announce that we have a sponsor for this video. If you want to skip the ad, just jump to this part of the video. I won't be mad. And with that, let's begin. Our friends at Colette have partnered with Deep Core Munitions and Deep Rock Galactic to bring you the Colette Wavecooker. The Wavecooker has become the leading appliance in the field of on-the-go combat cookery, able to defend and assist the battle-hardened chef on the go. No mining team deserves to go hungry, and now they don't have to, as often. Take it on short excursions for a bite to eat, or bring it and some extra power supplies for those long deep dives where survival may depend on a well-cooked meal and the lifted spirits of some well-fed dwarves. Their patented 20,000 watt directional magnetron will ensure that nothing you pointed at will be cold on the inside, unless you want it to be, of course. We're going to be taking a deep dive into the Colette Wavecooker to explore what it can do, as well as some setups I'm particularly fond of for my own combat chef needs. Disengage your wattage limiters and set your cookers to high. Let's get started. First things first, let's talk basics. As a weapon, what is the Wavecooker in relation to your other two options? It functions, stay with me here, as an area of effect, infinite range submachine gun for the driller. I know that sounds weird, but if you think about it, that really is what it is. The weapon fires in a cylinder of damage at a relatively high rate of fire with zero fall-off. The individual ticks of damage are hit scan, meaning they hit targets instantly when fired, but what is lost in accurate single-point damage is made up for in area of effect on impact. This range and area damage is useful for hitting groups of enemies nearby, as well as quickly dispatching targets high up or far away without needing to pinpoint aim. From the moment you get the machine in your hands, this functionality is available to you. It can be great for quickly clearing out small groups of enemies such as swarmers, nadocytes, parasites, or even rockpox larvae. Even some low HP enemies like glyphid web spitters are in trouble when you have this weapon. It might not be the most efficient option, but you can't argue with results. Now, one or two words of caution for new Wavecooker users. This is a high-powered microwave with no cooking cavity for the waveguide to focus beams into. Whatever part of the cave you're facing is the cooking cavity, which means that you need to be careful near teammates. This is because the waveguide causes the microwave beam to begin at full width from the moment it leaves the gun to the point of impact. This means that when you stand near your team, anyone slightly in front of you, and for wider waveguide settings, to your left and right, will be getting a burst of microwaves to the face, or back, or shoulder, or whatever. Be aware that when you are in shoulder-to-shoulder formation or in tight tunnels with teammates that you need to either watch when you use the cooker as best you can to avoid damaging them, or set your cooker to a tighter waveguide width in order to keep the cylindrical beam easier to manage with minimal friendly fire. And while we're on the subject of waveguide settings, we need to talk about the reticle on your HUD for the Wavecooker. Due to the nature of its beam being a cylinder, the reticle will only be truly accurate at a range of about 8 to 20 meters in front of you. At very close and very far distances, the reticle will begin showing an area that is either smaller or larger than the actual damage area of your wave beam. This doesn't really hurt the cooker's effectiveness as a weapon if you're always attempting to center it on your primary target, but it can make it hard to use for cooking purposes if you aren't careful. As a rule of thumb, assume the beam is wider than your reticle at short and point-blank range, and assume the beam is smaller than your reticle at longer ranges. Center your targets and watch your teammates as stated before, and you'll be fine. Especially considering that you guys use firearms as part of your job, I'm not worried about this part, I'm just reading it off the the script. You know what I mean.
Can we cut that?
Now, this is the part where I would talk to you about a Greenbeard-friendly setup for the weapon, a build that uses no overclock like in my weapon guides from the past. We will be taking a new approach because this weapon functions differently. Though here is the build I would use without knowing the context of what primary weapon you've brought and without an overclock, just to cover our bases. The Wavecooker is a weapon that's all about synergy with your other weapons or your team. Far more so than the other weapons at your disposal, in my humble opinion. These synergies hinge upon 3 modifications available in Tier 5, but we'll be going over all 5 tiers of upgrades for a more holistic understanding. Tier 1 has your standard increased damage with convex lens, and increased ammo pool with the Magnetron tube mod, as well as convex lens, which widens the base beam area. Tier 2 has options for the cooldown of the weapon with heatsink and thermoelectric cooler. The first will let you fire longer without overheating, and the second will simply cool the weapon down faster. The other option, larger power supply, actually increases the rate of fire or take rate of the weapon's beam at the cost of overheating quickly. Tier 3 has the option to either slow targets on hit with densification ray, or to maintain the current temperature-based status of a target with temperature amplifier. This option had me confused for a bit, but its function is basically to make sure that if you're firing at a burning or frozen enemy, they won't have a chance to run the clock out on the status before you finish what you're doing. Tier 4 is simply a choice of lenses to go with your R function. Wide lens add-on making the weapon overheat faster for a larger beam that can stack with Tier 1's concave lens, or power supply overdrive increasing the rate of fire further at the expense of an even tighter beam size to compensate. And finally, we have Tier 5 with Contagion Transmitter, Boiler Ray, and Exothermic Reactor. These 3 settings have the largest impact on how you will be using the weapon, to the degree that I would like to talk about each separately with some example setups I like for each. First up is probably the more popular way to utilize the Colette Wavecooker as far as I've seen from the combat footage. Using Exothermic Reactor to turn the cooker into a temperature shock machine. If you need a refresher, temperature shock is a burst of 200 disintegration damage that occurs when a target is rapidly brought up or down in temperature from the state of burning or freezing. What the Exothermic Reactor does is automatically detect if the target is beyond or below extreme temperature values, and rapidly counteracts that state to bring them back to ambient temperatures, while also spreading that energy, or lack thereof, to the surrounding area. This results in a violent burst of damage on the target, killing most smaller bugs outright, and can easily ignite or freeze bugs nearby with the dispersal. When combined with Temperature Amplifier in Tier 3, you can ensure that your target won't naturally return to those normal temps without this damage happening, as well as continually spread the temps around. It sounds complicated, but let's look at a few examples with overclock so you can see it in action. This setup is using the Mega Power Supply overclock with the mods 21223. This ensures an absolutely massive amount of battery life at our disposal with decent rate of fire and cooling speed, but most importantly, a focused beam using our temperature mods to proc temp shock as fast as possible on a single target. I use these settings on builds that have a crisper flamethrower as my primary because it's an easy way to spread fire to surrounding bugs. It also saves on flamethrower ammo. Due to the nature of ignited bugs still moving quickly, it's much easier to spread flames from a single chosen target rather than trying to hit a whole group of them as they move around. And as a foil to that build, here we have the Diffusion Ray overclock using 21213. Diffusion Ray allows for the overpenetration of targets, which, when combined with slowdown, a slightly larger beam, and reduced internal heat buildup, can cause whole groups of bugs to freeze together before shattering from temp shock. This is my cryo setup, since the beam penetration does well to cut through groups of frozen bugs at horizontal angles, and the wide beam is much more suited to enemies that will all be stopped in a tight area together. Now, in truth, both of these can utilize the larger power supply in Tier 2 for more fire rate, or increase the speed of temp shock procs, but these are both tailored to comfort of use rather than pure speed. Try each out and see which feels best for you. So what if you're a sludge pump enjoyer? First of all, you probably stink. Second of all, the Colette has a fantastic option in Tier 5, the first option actually, Contagion Transmitter. This mod circumvents the use of temperature to instead cause rapid cellular damage to already poisoned or corroded enemies. This not only lets you deal 30% more damage to afflicted targets, either by puddles, direct goo, or neurotoxin, but also causes them to release clouds of toxic vapor to nearby bugs, poisoning them in the process as well. The poison effect also stacks with neurotoxin, even if your suit's HUD doesn't show the effects twice, it's there. My favorite way to set this up is with the liquid cooling system overclock and 32111. This allows the cooker to have the widest beam width possible with the least heat generated in that configuration. That translates to the ability to hit whole groups of bugs caught in neurotoxic grenades or goo puddles to expedite their deaths. While both those tools are effective at killing bugs on their own, this Wavecooker allows you to speed up the process in order to hamper the swarm's movement significantly. It may seem a bit redundant, but when you get into Hazard 4 and 5 swarms where you can be overrun quite fast, being able to slow a swarm to a crawl and spread a DOT effect around easily makes things much more manageable and frees you up to handle more pressing threats. There are other ways to use Contagion Transmitter outside the wide-angle control though. That damage boost pairs quite well with the Super Focus Lens overclock ability to deal higher damage to a target that's closer to you. Instead of taking the role of group suppression, you instead wield a cooker that lets you quickly dispatch armored enemies or things like slashers that get too close for comfort so long as you're spreading goo and neurotoxin around liberally. It isn't as ammo efficient, so you will have to choose wisely what you use it on, or swap the increased battery size in Tier 1. Both of these Contagion Transmitter setups can be fantastic if you pair them with the sludge pump that complements them. The wide-angle one does well with both large goo spread builds as well as a way to deal with groups when using a more single-target focused CSP for eliminating high-threat targets. The tight-angle version is more specialized for crowd control sludge pump configurations, filling in the single-target gap if needed. Now, there are ways to set up the Wavecooker to function without needing to pair it with elemental damage types too. These are configs I use Boiler Ray on, and let me tell you, it is an underrated Tier 5 mod. What this thing does is give every single target killed by a final hit with the Wavecooker a 50% chance to explode for 100 damage. This is not a death effect, so this chance remains even on frozen targets too. Now, on regular sized bugs, this sounds like a nice little bonus, but not something you'd play too much into. But when used on small targets, it can turn whole swarms into minefields that cost very little ammo to take care of. You just paint over a swarm, targeting the smallest first, to roll the dice and see how much free damage you get out of it before switching to your primary to finish them off. If you take it on warnings like Swarmageddon, Parasites, Lithophage missions, and Rival Presence, you can get a lot of value out of it. You heard me, Rival Presence. For some reason beyond me, science team people might know, but Boiler Ray can proc on rival shredder drones. Don't question it, just enjoy watching 4 of them die when you roll an explosion on the first one. And as a small caveat, yes, Boiler Ray will turn you into a gambling addict. I find myself regularly leaving enemies at the very brink of death so I can proc a Boiler Ray on them instead of just killing them outright. But my God, does it feel good! The first config I like to use Boiler Ray on is my Blistering Necrosis Overclock Cooker, set up with 23122 as a Dreadnought hunting secondary. Boiler Ray is on this one to act as a quick option for dealing with swarmers and other small bugs when I'm not using Blistering Necrosis for its 10% chance to create weak points on larger bugs. It's there to complement my primary, which is often chosen for damage-forward setups, which can lead to ammo problems, alleviated by the Wavecooker if used properly. Outside of Dreadnought fights, it acts as a cleanup weapon to save primary ammo, but during them it swaps over to being a weak point creator to get extra damage on all types of dreads, as well as deleting the swarmers that OG Dreadnoughts produce constantly. Oh, and one extra thing that's fun to do. Apparently, if you create blister weak points right in the mouth of a Dreadnought that fires projectiles from its mouth, the fireballs can hit the weak point blank and hurt it instead. Not incredibly reliable, but it's really funny when you pull it off. This last setup used boiler ray as an auxiliary option, but this next one has it as its front and center star. We're using super focus lens again now with the mods 12122 to create a cooker capable of deleting close range bugs and fast. It does do slightly less damage on average than the contagion variant I showed earlier, but comes with the bonus of not having to apply a status ailment first. This cooker can be whipped out to remove problems at a moment's notice, doing respectable damage when bugs are in your personal space, yet also handling groups with the boiler ray. The added damage allows you to kill grunts much faster, so in situations with no small enemies, an injured grunt will do just fine for an explosion roll. Pay attention to enemy health bars and try to pick off the weak and infirm first, like a predator on the Great Plains or a lone shark on a city planet. This one pairs well with all sorts of primary weapons, so don't hesitate to try it out, especially if you tend to be the type that dislikes constantly switching weapons for combos. Alright, we got one more thing to talk about that didn't really fit into any of the other categories, and that's the gamma contamination overclock. This OC gives you a 25% per hit chance to apply a radioactive status effect to any target. You know, unless it's those damn EDZ glyphids. Or, wait, I guess it does work on them. I don't know anymore, man. Hoxie's 4 is weird. This status not only deals great damage over time to the target, but creates a 2 meter AoE field around them that deals tick damage to adjacent bugs. They can't be hurt by their own radioactive fields since they already have the damage over time effect from the status applied to them, but the overlapping fields can hurt irradiated bugs, so damage can ramp up quickly when you manage to apply this to a whole tightly packed swarm. My preferred setup for this is usually 2, 2, 2, 2, 3. Often paired with a flamethrower as my primary, but it's not strictly necessary. This lets you temp shock bugs left and right as usual, with the added benefit of irradiating some for even more damage. It can easily pick off bugs you temp shock that have just a few HP left over, which is nice. Both the temp shock and radiation benefit from the rate of fire proc chances, so it works fairly well. In truth though, gamma contamination is a pretty flexible overclock that can be used for any of the 3 tier 5 options you build for. This is true for a few of the Wavecooker's overclocks, but the radiation effect is a fantastic damage over time effect, and only suffers in one biome since nothing but specially adapted glyphids are immune to its damage. As a rule of thumb for this one, build for rate of fire and try to have an ammo boost in the tier 1 since the overclock reduces your capacity some. If you get used to swapping the mods around appropriately, or use a quality of life mod for your terminal UI, not strictly illegal, don't tell management about that one, you can use the gamma contamination OC with all 3 primary weapons, or in any situation with how solid it is. Try saying gamma contamination 50 times in a row. I've said banana contamination a couple times, I need some coffee. And that's all I have for you on the Colette Wavecooker. A fantastic piece of kitchen or combat gear that's perfect for the chef on the move. Or even if you just love that tea kettle sound Glyphid's carapaces make when that hemolymph fluid hits boiling temperatures. Mwah! Use my promo code SEERVEND at checkout on the Colette website to get 30% off any order over 50,000 credits. Order within the next 60 days and get the Colette Xenobiological Cookbook with your order as a limited time bonus. I can't recommend this thing enough. I use it more than a few times a week and I've been enjoying the model Colette sent me to try out. And again, thanks to our friends at Colette for sponsoring this video. Okay. Thanks for your patience, guys. Hopefully the sponsored segment wasn't too much. Anyways, we need to talk about something that and honestly, I think you know what. For the past few weeks, we've been dealing with the same issue regarding the trash compactor and ejection chute. Ejection chute. God. Yeah, like I said we were going to go over equipment, but this is just something we have to get out of the way. So just bear with me. Maintenance has complained to me multiple times to get the word out, and apparently the paper messages taped to the machine went unseen 19 times. We know you see them, guys. You can't just tear them off and pretend they're not there. Anyway, so I'm asking you, like me, personally, I'm asking you, please stop overloading the machines. If you see that the thing is full when you head to get rid of trash, just run the compression cycle and jettison what's there before you throw your bags on the pile on top. It's a ton of extra work to clean that, and I've done it myself a couple times. Like, we don't have enough people to be down here in the launch bay helping you with this thing. So, you know, this is especially since one of you thinks it's okay to not tie the bags before tossing them in. This is pretty much your last chance before maintenance shoves off the responsibility to you guys exclusively for your living quarters. And you know, I can't really blame them seeing the state of things down there. Your trash is disgusting. It's... God, this is... How many times have we talked about this? Let's be professional and help each other do our jobs here, guys. You're better than that. And like, maintenance is doing they're doing their jobs. These guys are saints for dealing with everything you guys do down there. So I'm advocating for you, okay? I'm on your side. So just help me out here, okay? Just please. All right. I think that's everything. Not a super long message, but I just had to get it out there. Okay, we're done. Rock and stone, everybody. See you Thursday. Congratulations on purchasing your new Colette Wave.
Your friends, right? Give me your satchel charge. I will steal the flesh from your bone.
All off the bone flavor. Your food is now ready.
You are my favorite.